Hey everybody. I think I'm going live. I This is totally impromptu. I mean, as far as a business standpoint, I mean, if you can call it that, that I want to help anyone that is really committed to going into a relationship with a coach, whether it's a wealth coach or a relationship coach. It's really important to get yourself prepared for that. And that's what I help you do by, going through my stages to divine healing. It's really all about being able to absorb information mentally, starting with clearing the gut. But that's not what I wanted to talk about today. Have you ever gone to a service and some man gets up to preach, and even by his size or just anything about him you can see that he's just a regular human being that is living just as I am, but he acts as if he's holier than thou. He acts as if he's somebody who is able to follow the law, and he begins to shame everybody. So I've been to so many services like this, and when I leave the service, I do not feel better. I feel guilty. I feel shame. And this should never be, because there's no condemnation for those who are in Christ Jesus. Service should be about glorifying Christ and always pointing to Christ. It should never be about the law, thou shalt not and thou shalt not, because we are above the law. We are dead to sin. So there was the law of the old covenant, and now there's the law of grace. And it's grace is a person, his name is Jesus. And, Jesus says you can't put old wine in new wineskins because it'll destroy both. And this is what the churches are trying to do. They're screaming and yelling, and they're bringing up Old Testament things, not for knowledge and about prophecy of Jesus, but to condemn, and they're mixing them, and it should not be that way. So I got this magazine. I get this every quarter. It's the Freedom magazine. I don't know if you can see that. It's by Charles Stanley, and I really do like him. He's sweet. And I normally don't read the NIV version. I do the King James version, but I really like this because in Galatians chapter 5, he says, "It was for freedom that Christ set us free. Being under the law is not freedom, it's anything but," right? He says, "Therefore, keep standing firm and do not be subject again to a yoke of slavery." Be really careful because, like, for instance, just thinking about myself, I love Facebook. I love the community of strong female leaders, but I can find myself being pressured at times to put that yoke of slavery back on. It says, "Behold, I, Paul, who is speaking to the Galatians, say to you that if you receive circumcision, which is the law, then Christ will be of no benefit to you." So it's either or, it's not both. "And I testify again to every man who receives circumcision, he is under obligation to keep the whole law, and no human being can do that." Because, like, say one of the commandments was thou shalt not murder. And then Jesus came down like Moses on steroids, right? And he came down and said, "Hey, if you even think a negative thought about somebody, that's the same as murder." So no human being at all could ever keep the law. And there are many preachers, like I said, that claim to have done that and use that as a way to shame other people. But if you do receive circumcision, then you're under obligation to keep the whole law. You have been severed from Christ. What a nightmare. That would be such a nightmare. And then you're seeking to be justified by the law. See, I'm already justified in Christ. It's just as if I've never sinned. I'm already justified in Christ. So I need to walk in that justification, right? I've been knit together in my mother's womb and then called and then justified. I've been anointed and now I'm being glorified for his glory. And it has nothing to do with being justified by the law. Remember at Mount Sinai, I mean, they all complained. All of the Egyptians complained, and God never punished them. He never shamed them. But they had the audacity to say, hey, whatever God you tell us to do, we can do it. So God said, fine, here are the commandments. Then if you don't want to follow me, are you following me? Are you justified by me? Or are you justified by following these 7 steps to success or whatever? Is it God that's really doing this? He says, if you are being seeking to be justified by the law, then you've fallen from grace. And I love that fallen from grace because in the Ark of the Covenant, inside, God lifts up the mercy seat and he puts the law underneath the mercy seat. So it's always about about Jesus, about God's mercy, which is Jesus on top. And so yes, I've fallen from that grace. Now I'm under that. That's what fallen from grace means, is that now I'm putting myself into that yoke of slavery and I'm trying to be justified by the law. In Christ Jesus, there's neither circumcision nor uncircumcision. It doesn't mean anything. It doesn't really matter if you're a male or a female or circumcised or not. You smoke, you don't. You cuss, you don't. None of that matters in Christ Jesus. It's just faith walking through love. When God looks down on me, he doesn't see my behavior. He sees the blood of his son. I mean, it's so simplistic. He said, you were running well. Who hindered you from obeying the truth? This persuasion did not come from him who calls you. This did not come from God. What happened? Just a little leaven can ruin the whole lump of dough. And I love that analogy because what I have to eat has to be gluten free. I have to always focus on my gut health, to get it's part of getting to, my mental health. And I get that. I mean, I could look at the ingredients of something and just yeast could be like a very small, like the last ingredient, but it's still going to destroy my gut. I have confidence in you, in the Lord, that you will adopt no other view, but the one who is disturbing you will bear his judgment, whoever he is. That's hard to understand. I have confidence in you, in the Lord, So my confidence in you is actually through the Lord, and that you will adopt no other view except this one, that you're under the grace, not under the law. But whoever is trying to change your mind, they are going to bear their own judgment, right? Like God will heap burning coals on their head, not as like a punishment to hurt them, but to get them hopefully to pay attention, you know? So that's why it can be a stumbling block, right, to other people, because I can harbor resentment and try to take revenge myself instead of letting God take care of it. But brethren, if I still preach circumcision, why am I being persecuted? Because if he were preaching circumcision, law, nobody's going to mess with him. But he's preaching the truth. He's talking about Jesus and how we're saved by grace and grace alone. It has nothing to do with my behavior, nothing to do with me, period. And he's being persecuted for that and attacked for that. So as we begin to step into the truth, and become all these strong leaders that God's waiting for, and we come forward as a tribe and as an army, and we speak about the truth that we are under the law of grace, period. It's not about the Old Testament. It's not about the commandments. It's not about that. It's not about Dawn. It's about Jesus. It's always about the finished works of Jesus. We are going to be persecuted, and that's good news. If we are persecuted, then we know we're doing something right. And the stumbling block of the cross has been abolished. I wish, he said, oh my gosh, Paul says, I wish those that were troubling you would mutilate themselves. Have you ever felt like that? I know I have. I have. I love this last part. He says, again, you were called to freedom. Okay. Please do not turn your freedom into an opportunity for the flesh, right? But make it an opportunity to serve one another, not to be in competition with each other, not to send a DM pretending that, you want to be friends with somebody, really just with an opportunity to sell them, right? Right? I mean, on every level, an opportunity. How can I be of service to you? How can I help you? Can I help you clear your gut of candida? Can I talk to you about the detriments of toxic carcinogen chemicals? Can I help you and help you help your children? And I love this because it says the whole law is fulfilled. The whole law is fulfilled in just one word. You shall love your neighbor as yourself. And that's why I love not using chemicals, because to spray perfume all over myself and then go out into the world around people is to harm other people. It's not loving in any way, and so I have to be really careful about, chemicals. And I feel like I'm on my own, remember when smoking was okay. And I just remember when people used to smoke, all I had to do, I had to forge my mother's signature and then I could smoke. In seventh grade, I was only 12 years old in the smoking lounge in the high school. And people used to smoke in the colleges I went to. They even smoked in the hospital. I mean, somebody was dying of like a heart attack in the other room, and the doctor would be like on a smoke break in the hallway. And so we've come a long way, but it took a long time. And so chemicals are more damaging than cigarettes, and they are more addictive than heroin. And it's going to take a long time. And I know that, I'm almost 48 years old and I'm just talking about it, and I'm hoping that somebody younger, a millennial, really starts to understand and take that on, and that, she or he will continue to do that, because it's going to take 30 years, if we're even here that long, right, to make a difference for people to catch on. I keep looking out the window because my son's coming over and he is bringing a sub for himself. I can't eat because my mouth has some damage that a young girl did. And he's going to eat. What a blessing here with me. And then he wants me to use his car because he is in the front in the worship team. He's been playing on the worship team for a while, and he's been in the back row, and now he's in the front row. So it's a big deal, and he's invited me, and what a blessing that is. But I really wanted to share this because, when I was under the law of condemnation and death, and that's what the Bible talks about. That law, thou shalt not, thou shalt not, thou shalt not. It's the law of condemnation and death. It just brings death. That's it. It's like a mirror looking in it of who I am. It's not going to do anything. It's holy because God made it. It is holy, but it's not going to produce any fruit in my life. It's not going to do anything for me, and thank God that he sent his only begotten son to die on my behalf, and now I'm under the law of grace. And so I just really wanted to share that today because it was so powerful. And I really appreciate your listening, and I hope you have a blessed day.